Hi everyone, this is S and Rosa from Century 21 Innovator. I hope you guys are all doing okay and staying safe out there. I've got a very special guest today on this show. We've got Gary Fooks from 8Twelve Mortgage. Thanks so much for joining us, Gary.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to ask Gary a few questions to provide content to everyone out there. Obviously, it is difficult times. It's challenging for a lot of people financially. And Gary can help us answer a few questions that can help you in the next few days. So yeah, without further ado, I'll ask you a couple of questions, Gary, and would really appreciate your advice on the current situation. So my first question was in terms of the deferral of the mortgages. We've been hearing that a lot these days. In your opinion, like who should take advantage of this and should they be taking advantage and how can they?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of false information disseminated in the market. You know, the media typically generalizes and puts some information out there, and everybody thinks it applies to all lenders carte blanche, but it actually doesn't. So all the lenders right now are dealing with deferrals on a case-by-case, month-by-month basis. You would have to contact your lender directly. You know, advise them that you're out of work due to COVID, assuming you are, and that making the mortgage payment would be a challenge for you for the next little while this situation, this pandemic is happening. And then ideally they would, you know, allow you to defer your payment. There's no set rule. So you may call them and they may only allow you to defer for 1 month. And typically that's what's been happening. It's 1 month at a time. Some lenders, you know, rarely have pushed it past the month, but it's always a possibility. But they do have to contact their lender directly. Unfortunately, mortgage brokers don't have access to your file once your mortgage closes. We can do our best to provide you with the contact details, with any, you know, email addresses, etc., that you may need to access in order to get a hold of the lender. As I'm sure you can understand, most banks and lenders are overwhelmed with the requests. They're not set up for something like this. So, you know, hold times could be 3-4 hours, or they may be forcing you to send an email or fill out a form online. So it's just important that you educate yourself as to how they want to be contacted. And that's where, you know, your mortgage broker can come in and help you with that.
Okay, awesome. That's great information for everyone out there. My next question is regarding the Bank of Canada interest rates. So obviously we all heard that the key rate had gone down due to the situation. But there's been news out there that the mortgage rates are still going up. So can you explain how that works and the confusion that's out there for a lot of people? They also have this idea that because the key rate went down, the mortgage rates would go down as well. If you could kind of describe that as well and see how that works.
Sure. So as we know, the Bank of Canada have lowered their overnight renting rate to 0.25%. In general, when there's ever a rate increase or a rate cut, the banks and lenders, because there's other lenders in the market that are not traditional Schedule I banks, they're not obligated to follow suit with their rates. They typically do follow the direction of whether it's a rate increase or a rate cut, but they're not obligated to, and especially not to the point where, you know, if there's a 0.5% cut, they don't have to cut their rates 0.5%. They may just do a small portion of that, you know, maybe 10 or 20 or 25 basis points. Now, usually up until the recent COVID environment, if there has been a rate increase or a rate cut, all the banks and lenders have followed suit. But because of the situation that everyone's facing right now, you know, at the end of the day, people have to understand that the banks are a company and they're publicly traded companies. So they have to answer to their shareholders at the end of the day. So just like businesses being impacted negatively, where there's generally going to be a slowdown in business over the next several months, the banks are foreseeing that as well for obvious reasons. You know, some clients will have issues making payments. Clients will be asking for deferrals. There'll probably be less mortgages pushed out because people aren't working anymore, so they may not qualify even just from a general income perspective if they wanted to refinance. So in order to keep their numbers strong, you know, although the Bank of Canada overnight rate has been cut, the banks have increased their fixed rates to account for the slowdown. So they now need to kind of basically make a little bit of a bigger spread on their mortgage rates than they did in the past. They've also reversed the trend with the variable rate. So we know fixed rates are higher. Typically variable rates are prime minus. So prime right now being 2.45%. In the past, banks would, you know, offer prime minus on variable. They've actually switched that now and it's prime plus. So again, at the end of the day, they're a business. They have to make money like all other businesses, and they're just charging more because they need to make more money to basically to their investors and their shareholders.
That's awesome. Now, aside from the mortgage, let's talk about just, business owners in general. Like you run your own business and you're pretty successful at it. You're doing it for a long time. What kind of advice or words of encouragement would you give to people out there that, are suffering, obviously due to hard times? What can they do? What can they do to keep busy during this time? What have you been doing? What are your examples?
So I think I'm a bad example because we are an essential service. We're categorized as essential service, and we're still open for business. And we're really a technology company that happens to do mortgages. So when the pandemic hit, it didn't stop us from operating, whereas a lot of other businesses aren't prepared for this type of environment or just don't function in this type of environment. But that being said, we're also negatively impacted just like everybody else. From a business to business perspective, I mean, right now is the time to kind of look at your bottom line, look at your numbers, look at your growth strategy. This is a temporary situation. We will get through this, right? That's the one thing that everybody needs to understand. There's no doubt, whether it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks, we're going to come out of this and business will restart. People will start going out again. They'll start going to restaurants. They'll start buying things. So, use this time to really evaluate your business and see what you can do moving forward that, when the green light goes and everyone's back outside, how can you start, accommodating your future clients when business restarts? And that's really the best advice I could give them. I mean, we're doing the same thing even while we're, open for business right now.
I guess I should have asked you this question in the beginning, but if you can just kind of finish off this presentation and just talk about your company, what services you guys offer, and where is the best number or contact to reach you guys at?
Sure. So we are a licensed brokerage with FSR, the Financial Service Regulatory of Ontario. We're a full service brokerage. So we do every type of mortgage transaction possible, whether clients are looking, for a first mortgage, a second mortgage, a line of credit, if they're buying something, if they want to refinance, we do it all. We also do mortgages on every type of property. So if they're looking for residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, if they want to build a property on raw land, we do construction mortgages as well. So basically anything with the word mortgage in it, we are here. We're here to help. We have access to every lender that exists in the broker world. We do hundreds of millions of dollars in mortgages annually, and we've been, growing that exponentially year over year. In Toronto, locally, it's 416-800-1052. We're typically open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mondays or Fridays. We do have weekend coverage. So if people have questions, it doesn't mean they have to take a mortgage today. If they just have questions, if they want advice, we're not really about the mortgage. We're more about the relationship. So we're here to help anybody, whether they need a mortgage now or may need one in 20 years from now. Always feel free to reach out for any kind of professional advice that we can offer.
Great. Thanks so much, Gary. Really appreciate your time. And like Gary said, this thing will pass. Everyone just stay upbeat, stay confident, and work on your business. Try to get out there and stay home and learn, train, and do whatever you can. And if you have any questions about mortgages, and I'll provide his contact info on my post as well. Thanks so much, Gary. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Stay safe
Thank
out
you.
there.
Likewise. Thank you.